Hello, friends. Welcome back to For the Plot. I have just got in from my German language exam, which is phase, I don't know what, 18 of applying for German citizenship. It's the first time in years that I have sat kind of a formal exam, and it was giving me such throwbacks to being at university, at school, and the whole setup was just really, I don't know, really funny. So there's four parts to it. There was speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And the speaking was pretty chilled. We did it in partners. We had to introduce ourselves. We had to plan a party for a fake colleague who'd just gotten married together. And then we each had to give a presentation about a theme that we'd chosen in advance. And I mean, not in advance, they basically, like, before they gave us this sheet of paper with some topics on it. Conveniently, my two topics to choose from were learning a musical instrument or eating a vegetarian diet. Yeah, then we went to the room, we did our little presentations, we answered some questions, and that was it. So the speaking was quite chilled. The listening, the reading, and the writing all took place in this kind of exam hall, which kind of felt a bit futuristic to me because we were using laptops and computers, and we didn't do this when I was at school or university. So which makes me feel really old. But it's obviously, like, when I think about it, it's so insane that we would do exams, like writing pages and pages of essays, and probably the people marking the exams or reading couldn't read half of what you were writing, especially because you were writing such a rush or like smudge the ink or whatever. So I don't know. Makes a lot of sense that we did them on these laptops. But we basically entered the room, and every single time we entered the room, we had to show our ID to this invigilator. So this person who was kind of like keeping an eye on us whilst we did the exam. And I swear to fucking God, she looked identical to Kelsey from High School Musical, right down to the detail of the way that her fringe was split into strands of hair. And she had the exact same glasses, and she had the same kind of energy. So every time we entered the room, we had to show our ID or our passport to Kelsey. We would go in, sit down, and then so the laptops we had to log into, which also reminded me of school, where you would have your like username and password, as if that's not something that we have on every fucking app and account. But anyway, it would be it was so retro. She gave us a piece of paper with a login and a password on it that was kind of specific to us. But before she gave them out, because each person had their own one, before the first exam, the listening exam, she basically said, "Okay, if it's okay for everyone, I'm gonna read out the names, and then I will just come and put it on your desk. Is it okay for everyone that I read the names aloud?" And everyone was like, "Yeah, okay." And then this one guy put his hand up and was like, "I wouldn't like you to read my name aloud." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So she was basically like, she went through the list and she was reading out people's names, and they were like putting their hand up. She would go to the desk and give them the sheet of paper with the login on it. And then, like, they obviously hadn't thought about this in advance. She read this guy's name out. I'm obviously not going to disclose his name because that's very important to him, but she read this guy's name out and nobody put their hand up. And she read it out again, and she was like, "Oh, this person, maybe this person isn't here, but it's weird because I've checked them off on the list." And then, like, really huffing and puffing and reluctantly, the guy was like, "Oh, it's me." So really what they should have done is, when he said he didn't want his name read out, he should have at least told her his name so that she could have come and give him the paper without him reading out. Anyway, the whole thing was just so bizarre. So we did the listening exam, and it reminded me of being back in secondary school, which is the last time that I've like formally studied a language. In secondary school, I studied French, but you cannot imagine how funny it was trying to learn French at a Scottish school. Um, we don't have access to a lot of the vowels that you need to put on a French accent, and most people just didn't even try. And French in a Scottish accent sounds hilarious. But whenever we had these listening exams, it was always the same guy reading out the exam question. And it would always be something like, you are traveling. And it was this like really thick but posh Scottish accent. I don't know how to explain it. Like he was from the islands, but he'd gone to the city and trained as an actor or something like that. Like, you are visiting Paris on a French exchange. You are about to meet your French pen pal for the first time. You and Francois are going to visit the Eiffel Tower. Or you and your French pen pal Jean Pierre. And it stuck with me, and it really felt like that, hearing this voice that was telling you that you're going to hear the text twice. Sometimes it's going to be a radio, sometimes it's going to be a flight announcement. But yeah, it really just threw me back to these classrooms doing French listening exams. So yeah, it was an interesting day. So I spent the whole day at the Goethe Institute getting my German language certificate so I can submit it along with all of my other 3 million documents so that I can apply for my German passport. It wasn't exactly the best timing to do this exam. I actually already had to postpone it. I had it booked in January, but I was sick for a week and a half in January, which is quite uncharacteristic of me. I was lying on the couch, I had a fever, I felt very sorry for myself, and I had to cancel this exam, so it was postponed to today. It wasn't exactly the best time, especially because I had to interact with other people for the speaking part, because I am on the second day of a period from hell. Yesterday, my period started, and we really celebrate it every single time. Some context on that: I didn't have a period for 10 years. So I didn't have a bleed for around about 10 years, a natural bleed. And I had a condition, or I have a condition, maybe not anymore, I don't know, called hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is a secondary loss of the period. So like I had my period and then it went away. And it's caused by a lack of energy to the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that controls chemical reactions. And usually like, it's quite prominent in female-bodied athletes or people with eating disorders, because it kind of comes about when there isn't enough energy for the hypothalamus to carry out all of the chemical reactions that it's supposed to do. And one of the first things to go in a female body is basically reproduction. The brain is not receiving enough energy, and it's like, this is obviously not a safe space for us to procreate and breed, so it just shuts that system down. And then it starts like shutting other systems down one by one. And it usually happens because of combination or in isolation, overtraining, so like putting the body through too much stress, under resting and not letting it recover enough, under fueling, so not eating enough to sustain yourself, and stress. So quite often when people end up with irregular periods, it's one of these 4 things or a combination of all of them causing it. Anyway, I experienced this for the best part of 10 years, and then a couple of years ago I went through this period recovery program to get it back. And yeah, the first time that I got my period after going through this recovery process, it was so emotional. I was so excited. And the first year and a half or so, I was really celebrating every time that I was bleeding. Yeah, so I've had these periods of irregularity in my menstrual cycle. I had a big 6-month break last year when I was pretty stressed and going through some stuff. But for the last, let's say, 8-9 months or something, it's been very regular. And every single month, I am feeling progressively more and more fucking insane. And this month, yesterday, oh my god, it hit me like a fucking truck. I woke up and I was so emotional and I had crazy cramps. And yesterday I did 3 big cries. Okay, 3 big cries. The first one was chopping an onion, and it's not like the tears in my eyes from the onion. I was chopping an onion and half of the onion fell on the floor, and it set me off. I just couldn't handle that in that moment. The second one was, there was a bowl of carrots at our co-working space, and I love carrots. And the third one, just before I was going to bed, I was looking at photos on my phone, and I saw a picture. I'd seen a photo that I'd taken in Rossmann, which is this drugstore that I've talked about before. And it's basically of like tiny, tiny, tiny tubs of Vaseline. And I saw the picture of the tiny tubs of Vaseline, and I was just like, I actually feel almost a little bit emotional thinking about them now. They're so small and they're so cute. And yeah, so that was my third big cry of the day. And so when I woke up today and I still had these cramps and I still felt a bit hazy and I felt really emotional, I thought there's no way that I am going to be able to get through a German language exam. But here we are. We managed it. It's fine. It's done. Aside from being all consumed by my German language exam and my crippling period cramps, I have been on an insane number of side quests the past week, including, but not limited to, a Ramadan friendly date. Ramadan Mubarak to all my Habibis, by the way, belated. I have been rehearsing for a show in March, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be a queer strip show designed for immunocompromised and disabled people. So it's going to be fully masked. It's going to be fully tested. Safe space for people who usually aren't able to come to those kind of things. So we had a rehearsal for that. I was teaching and training, and I went to a backflip workshop. So for a friend's birthday, we basically organized a backflip workshop and we did all sorts of crazy acrobatics. It made me feel like a kid again. It was so fun. Being able to do a backflip has been on my side quest to-do list for a very long time, and so now we actually started the journey, and I feel quite confident that I'm going to be able to do it this year. So watch this space. And then I have a bunch of other side quests lined up in the next week that I'm just going to tease a little bit just now because I think the next couple of weeks are going to be kind of insane. I'm going to be testing a driverless car. Very curious about that. Also kind of scared, but mostly curious. I'm going to be going to Copenhagen for a social impact startup program. I am then going to Prague, or just outside Prague, somewhere random in the woods actually, like the sort of place that you really shouldn't go because it feels like the start of a horror film. But I'm going to a pastry masterclass with a vegan patisserie chef who I love and have been following her journey for many years. I'm basically performing in a bunch of random shows that I forgot that I said yes to over the course of March. So aside from this immunocompromised show, strip show that I'm very excited for, also going to be performing in a clown show. So it's like a clowns for resistance, like in aid of Palestine. Then we have a Forgive Me Daddy show, which is an Easter themed resolving our Catholic guilt burlesque and drag show. And so, yeah, all of these wonderful things are coming up, and I'm still trying to squeeze in story time for you here on For the Plot. The year is 2016. I was living in London, and it was an incredible year for the vegan community and the vegan movement. We were finally starting to become mainstream, and we were getting wonderful new products hitting like mainstream shops. So not just the Holland and Barrett's of the world, not just the Whole Foods, not just these bio places, but you could go into a Tesco or a Sainsbury's or an Asda and you could buy vegan chocolate that wasn't just dark chocolate. You could buy oat milk. You could buy all of these kind of like replacement meat things. Not something I ever dabbled in, but anyway, it was a great year for veganism. The movement felt like it really had a bit of momentum. Prior to that, I should tell you, I had gone to some London vegan meetups and everyone was a fucking freak. Like, everyone was so weird. Everyone was so weird. Like, you know, I was there, so I guess I was also weird, but nobody was normal. Everyone was like way too passionate about their reasons for veganism. These were the sort of like angry vegans that I think were bad for the movement. Everyone really liked to gatekeep. Everyone was very like picky and liked to attack everyone else. It was very holier than thou. I am more vegan than thou. This kind of vibe. So it wasn't it like we'd just come out of this kind of difficult phase and things were starting to be mainstream. And I went into a coffee shop in London that I used to call fondly with a friend of mine the Long Thin Place, and it was called Department of Coffee and Social Affairs. It was on Liverpool Street, just off Bishopsgate, and it's like a really long, I don't think it's there anymore. I would be very, very fucking surprised. It's like a very, very, very long and thin coffee shop with like floor to ceiling windows on the front, and it faced right onto the street. Department of Coffee and Social Affairs. And I went into this coffee shop and I decided, okay, I'm going to treat myself to a little coffee. We'll call it a posh coffee because I didn't used to buy coffee on the go that often. It was like a luxury that I just didn't indulge in. So I entered the coffee shop and I went to the the girl at the checkout. I said, "Hi there, can I have a cappuccino with oat milk?" And she looked at me and she was like, I don't think it's going to be possible. And I was like, oh, weird. Because it's on the board. And I also was looking over the counter and I could see the carton of Oatly barista there. And I was like, why is she not letting me have this? I said, okay, no, but like, I can see it. Like, I can see it there. So, like, maybe it's the milk steamer broken or something. And she was like, no, that's not the issue. And I was like, okay, then please, could I have a cappuccino with oat milk? And she was like, it's that's not possible. It's an Americano. And I was like, no, like the same as a normal cappuccino, but with oat milk. She's like, I'm so sorry. She's doing her like customer service polite voice. I'm so sorry. I cannot do a cappuccino without milk. And I was like, not without, with oat, OAT, oat milk, with oat milk. And she was like, oh, without milk. Yes, please make me a fucking cappuccino with oat milk. So we just had a bit of a mistranslation where she didn't understand my vowels and that I wanted a cappuccino with oat milk. She thought I had the audacity to walk into this fucking little bougie coffee place and ask for a cappuccino without milk. Second little lost in translation story for you, touching on one of my favourite themes in the world, the German healthcare system and going to the doctor, which, by the way, is one of the most fucking stressful things that you can do in this country. Actually, everything in this country is stressful to do. I'm sure at some point I'm going to tell you all about, I'm going to like trauma dump about the process I've been through to try and get this fucking passport. But anyway, I went to my doctor because I was exceptionally burnt out and I was not doing well and I was in like very frequent, I promise this is a funny story, but it doesn't sound like it. I was in very frequent episodes of disassociation and depression, and I went to the doctor, and the first appointment that I had, the doctor was like, oh, maybe you should just rest. And this is a stereotype that everyone in Berlin and Germany will know, but she also told me that I should drink tea and do yoga to cure my disassociation and depression. Yep. Yeah, so that was the first appointment. And she also gave me 2 days off of work, like signed me off sick for 2 days. Very helpful. Thank you very much. When I still was not feeling better a week and a half later, I went back and I stressed, okay, I actually really need some support with this. Maybe you can connect me with a therapist or some other things. She was like, okay, what we're actually going to do is get you to come back for some hormone tests, some blood tests. We're basically just going to check that everything is okay in your body. And I was like, I can guarantee you I'm in like peak condition, perfect health, and nothing is going to come of this, but sure, let me follow this process and do what you want me to do if it's going to help me access the help that I need. So I went back a third time a week later and I was scheduled for a bunch of different tests. So first I went into the phlebotomist. When I was saying that didn't sound right, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Phlebotomist. Yes. I went to the phlebotomist who took a blood test. And then I went for this kind of like, I guess, MOT, body MOT. I had my heart rate taken, my blood pressure. They measured like height and weight. I had to answer a bunch of questions about like my diet, my lifestyle, how much alcohol I drank, none. How many cigarettes I was smoking, some, but not so many at that moment. And yeah, then the third part of this assessment was I had to do a urine sample. And so I went to the reception of the doctor and I said, okay, I need to do my urine sample now. I was told to just get one of these little tubs, basically. They said, yeah, so you can just take this tub and you can go and you use this bathroom around the back. And after that, you can basically put the tub with the urine sample in the cupboard. And I was like, great, easy. So I go into the toilet and I like pee into this cup, obviously like pee on my hand, have to wash it. And then I was like, and then what was I supposed to do? I was supposed to put it in the cupboard. Okay. So I come out of the toilet and I started like walking up and down the hall of the doctor, like carrying my urine sample, like I have a drink at a party. And I go into one waiting room and I'm like, I don't see a cupboard there. Really strange. And then I went further down the hall and there's another waiting room. And I was like, I really don't see this cupboard. So then I thought, okay, maybe it's back next to the toilet. And so I'll go back next to the toilet. And lo and behold, yes, there's a door next to the toilet. I open it, I put it on the shelf in the cupboard. I'm like, great, done. She said just to leave after that. So I leave and I go back home. And about half an hour later, my phone rings. Second most stressful thing that can happen in Germany. You get a call from a German number. And I answer the phone and it's the doctor's surgery. And the woman on the phone and she says, you were just by us to have the hormone test, the blood test, and give the urine sample, but we didn't receive the urine sample. And I was like, oh, really strange, because I put it in the cupboard like you told me to. And she said, okay, something must have gone wrong. Do you have time just now? Maybe you can just come back to the doctor's surgery and you give another urine sample. I was like, okay, weird. My urine sample's gone missing, but whatever. So fortunately, it was only like 5 minutes round the corner. I go back to the doctor's surgery. I go in and the woman at reception says, yeah, we really don't know where it's gone. Maybe the person in the lab took it and then mislabeled it or something. I was like, it's really no problem. I drink a lot of water. I can give you another urine sample. So I take the urine sample tub and I go and I pee in it again. This time I don't pee on my hand. And then as I basically was like turning around because I did pee on the toilet seat this time, to wipe the toilet seat, I saw behind the toilet there was a small cupboard labeled like Schrank for like the cupboard for the urine samples. And I open it and it's like very clearly a little door through to the lab where they will then take the urine sample. So I put it there and I'm like, oh God. I go out of the toilet and I go into the cupboard next door where I'd left my urine sample before. And I really look at the cupboard this time and I swear to God, it's a fucking cleaning cupboard. So I'd basically put my urine sample on this empty shelf. And then the other shelves were filled with like paper towels, blue roll, wipes, gloves. There was literally a fucking mop in this cupboard that I just hadn't seen the first time. And then I was like, okay, but now I have this other urine sample. So then I took this urine sample, even though I just put the other one in the hatch. And I was like, it's okay, I'm just going to go and pour it down the toilet. Somebody was in the toilet. So then I couldn't think of anything else to do. I just decided I would like take it out with me. So then I left the doctor's surgery with this urine sample, poured it down the drain and threw the tub in the bin. So yeah, this wasn't exactly lost in translation because in my defense, Schrank is Schrank, cupboard is cupboard, but I just got the wrong cupboard and I didn't really understand where the cupboard was going to be. This week's lore I have to share with you because it's basically the third thing that is like completely consuming my brain this week. So at the queer travel app that I work at, we got an absolutely fucking insane email from one of our customers, one of our users. Just to give you a little bit of context, the app basically is a couch surfing app so you can find queer people to stay with whilst you're traveling. And we got this email from a kind of, let's say, disgruntled user. I'm just going to full name him and share like everything. I will blank some of the details out from this, but it's so funny. So it came in through our contact form from Howard Paul Shore. And it starts like this. Regarding very serious concern. And one thing you should know is that every letter in this email is capitalized. When I speak a little bit louder, it's because the entire word is capitalized. So it says, Dear Executive, good morning or good afternoon to you. How is your day today in sunny Berlin, Germany, and or wherever else you are in the world? My day is going fine, thank you, except due to the fact that I have been a member of your app for a few years and never got anything out of it. I have complained to you before about the same exact reason, meaning that you have like 1 and then in brackets the number 1 or 2 in brackets 2, perhaps on your website, between Chubut, Santa Cruz, and Tierra del Fuego, Argentina, and nothing more. You have done absolutely nothing to compete with Couchsurfing.com to get more users onto your app. I personally do not like Couchsurfing.com and refuse to use it. Your website is supposed to be taking over and or competing with Couchsurfing. But the question is, why have you not done enough to get more people on there? Especially for Chubut, Santa Cruz, and Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. Totally unfair and ridiculous. Enclosed below, please find an email showing you that I am still a member of your website/app for your reference and further review. Thank you. If you would like to contact me back directly in order to discuss my letter of very serious concern in further detail, then please contact me at, and then he's included his number. And he also has included a series of emails, one of which is private_executive.com. Oh my god. So, got this email from Howard Paul Shore. And I thought, wow, this is such a character. First off, I thought it was fake because of the way that it's written. Like, you really need to take your time to go and watch the video of this to look at how this looks. I thought it was a troll. And then I actually replied and I just said, hey, thank you for your frustrations. We're really doing our best to grow. Maybe you can have this free trial, blah, 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 blah. And then he replied, like, also very nicely, and then, but with some really funny suggestions, like, why don't you just use the software that Couchsurfing uses to get millions of users? Like, so I know this is a real person. And then just out of curiosity, I was just sitting with my housemate at the table and I was like, I wonder if this is a real guy and I wonder what he's like and what he does. And so I searched for him on LinkedIn. I didn't find him. Searched for him on Google and his Facebook came up. And again, this is a reminder, your digital footprint makes you very easy to find unless you take care of it. So found him on Facebook and looked through a bunch of his posts, and we are not the only organization that has received one of these complaint emails before. So he always starts them with VIP corporate executive and then the address of the company that he's reaching out to. And I got a little bit sad because I thought we were special that we were receiving this complaint, but he complains to restaurants, he complains to bars, he complains to hotels, he complained to some like Californian medical card company. This guy is like a prolific complainer and reviewer of places. And then I also saw on his Facebook, he links to his TikTok. And this man has got a TikTok where he basically, it seems like he's harassing people, but he's like doing these Vox Pop interviews. He'll be in like an arepa restaurant and he'll turn around and be like, this is Howard Paul Shore and I'm here with Anita who's making arepas. And he's got hundreds, if not thousands of these videos on TikTok. This guy is prolific. He's kind of like a travel influencer kind of guy. He's got like a couple thousand followers on TikTok. But this guy, Howard Paul Shore, when you're reading something and you think, wow, okay, I can feel lore here. This man has lore. He really has lore. He is basically like, he organizes tours in Argentina, which makes sense now why he's really confused and angry that we don't have more users in Argentina. But yeah, it was just one of these reminders that like, I think that I have my own lore, and then sometimes I read an email like this and it brings me so much joy and hilarity, but then behind this is also a person with their own deep and complicated and ridiculous lore. So yeah, thank you, Howard Paul Shore, for making my week. And thank you all for listening to For the Plot. Like I said, the next week I have got some crazy things lined up, so I'm going to actually record some episodes in advance so that you will be tided over until I can update you on all those wonderful things. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, please give it a rating, please like it, please share it with a friend that you also think would like it, and I will see you next time.